welcome to our regular April meeting. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and justice for all.
Wow, that was harder than I thought.
that was awkward.
Really?
Okay, Paulette
Okay.
Price,
Oh, yeah, okay. Here.
Judy Fouché,
Here.
John Crean,
Here.
Scott Latham,
Here.
Brian Tobin.
Will join us when he can.
Okay.
I guess we don't need to read evacuation notice.
you all know the way out of your own home, hopefully.
Okay. And I guess we skipped the first hearing of visitors, right?
Yes, we had no questions from the submitted from the public.
Okay. That brings us to our consent agenda, which is our approval of minutes.
A quick question. The public was notified that they could submit questions?
Yes, it was on the website
Okay, all right,
up until noon today.
okay.
Okay, sorry. The approval of minutes from our regular meeting of February 12th and budget meetings of March 4th and March 11th. It also includes our financial matters, which are our bills, our treasurer's report, our monthly budget status report, our transfers, extra classroom activity fund, and some surpluses and contracted services, and our CSEs. And of course, this was, I apologize, it was there. I just couldn't find it because I have technical issues. Are there any questions or comments about? Oh, I do have contracted services is under this, right? I'm backwards.
Yes.
So the contract health services for that school district, is it discounted because the school year is cut short?
Chuck?
I don't believe so.
Right, I'm going to see, because I think they're still educating the children, so I'm assuming most of the costs will still be, 100%.
Just like our school nurse is most likely still getting paid. I'm sure that do you know what I mean? Their health people are still getting paid.
Exactly.
We are
Okay.
looking into, this is a related matter, Paulette, we are looking into the bus contracts for the time post the closure. Would basically be April, May, and June.
Have they been billing us?
Well, this is still something that's being looked at. Yes, we've been receiving the bills, Mr. Scheid, correct? We're still looking into it.
Correct, we just received the April bill.
We've been closed all of April, essentially.
Right. What does the contract say?
Well, Chuck?
Again, I haven't gone through it tooth and comb, but it basically does say that, you need to provide the service and then, you would get paid. So it does seem like there's an out as far as not being possible.
We're not alone, though. Just so you know, a number of districts are all looking into this with legal counsel.
Yeah, I've read
And
that. So we haven't,
I'm sorry?
we haven't paid them, and we're not going to pay them until we get
Right.
clearing, I'm assuming.
Correct.
We pay through March, basically, but starting April, we're looking into it.
Right. And even with March, that was a
It was
gift.
a couple of, there was, whether it was official closure,
Has anybody spoken to them?
I haven't spoken directly with Sunrise. I don't know if you have, Chuck, but other districts have had some dialogue with Sunrise. But again, many districts are checking with legal counsel, and the state issued a survey to try to find out, correct, Chuck, what everybody's doing vis-a-vis their contracted services for busing, transportation, statewide. So I haven't gotten the results of that survey.
Yeah, there was something on the news about one of the bus companies up further west struggling because they weren't getting any money because none of the districts were obligated to pay them. But, it could be obviously different in every district.
Right.
But that's certainly something to think about, because the school bus company is a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Other than doing your odd wedding or summer camp trip,
No, it's true.
I certainly don't think we should be paying for any service we're not getting, but we also have to be, think about the fact that they are an employer in the town and figure something out.
Yeah.
wonder if, not that you're allowed to do this in this world, but if you get together as, human beings and say, what can we do that is somewhere in between? Now, we may not be allowed to do that based on contracts and state guidance and attorneys, but just like you would interact with someone who provides services at your house,
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to require some analysis even once we get the guidance. We're not in any rush to do anything until we get, good information. And everything will be.
I'm sure the guidance will be very gray.
Yeah, usually is.
Well, are we talking guidance from the state, or are we talking guidance from our legal counsel, or both?
Both.
Okay, because, yeah, that's a conversation for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
No one likes to make decisions. They like to go on precedent, and there is no precedent. So someone would actually have to have the cojones to make a decision. Excuse me.
And the first district that makes a decision, there'll be a trickle-down effect to the others.
Could be.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Patty, I see that the consent agenda was 6, and then we're going to 8 to the BOCES. Was there a 7 and I missed it?
No, you know what? No, it's fine.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. I have so many papers. This is the BOCES Joint Cooperative Bidding Program for our next school year, assuming we're going to have a school year 2021. This is the thing. Is there a reason why we're doing it now?
We always do it in April for the following year.
Okay. Any talk about this? Is there a motion to adopt the resolution, Joint Municipal Cooperative Bidding Program Resolution A?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Old business. Gosh, it was so long ago. David?
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. I do not have any old business to report.
Well, your superintendent's report, I'm sure you have a lot to report.
Well, it's definitely different to say the least. Certainly, first and foremost, I wish anyone who might be seeing this or hearing this nothing but good health and being safe. As much as there's nothing to report, there's so much to report, but I can't possibly think of how I'm going to do that right at this moment, other than to say I'm very grateful for the employees of our school district, the staff, the families of the community. We've seen a number of, and the board is aware of at least some of these things that have been reported to them and have been reported out through social media about the ways in which our students, the seniors of this class, and all the grades really, elementary school children, it's hard to capture it all. And yet I do think it's important to acknowledge it, that members of our board that serve the community, that provide life-saving services, to be honest, and it shouldn't go unnoticed that, our community, like many communities, we're dealing with this as best we can. And yet, we know that there's just so much that's going on near and far. So just very proud of our students and our staff and our community. I guess that.
David, could you take a couple minutes and explain to us exactly what the virtual days look like for our students, and maybe just an
it's
overview
hard
of
it's even hard to capture that to the extent that, Paulette, it's somewhat of a moving target. It's evolving from when we first started to, I think, what the experiences are now. The idea of replicating school, first of all, there are people that are raising lots of questions through my circles of educators talking, is it remote emergency learning? Is it distance learning? It has various labels. I'm sorry?
With the superintendent report, Brian.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. Welcome.
How are you?
So, the day tries to replicate the beginning and the end. In the secondary schools, there's more of a expectation to follow, the different assignments that teachers are providing electronically. There's a different structure somewhat in the elementary school. But again, nothing really replicates the face-to-face kind of work. There's some opportunities to be creative. Then there are things that just, you just can't do. You can't reproduce from a distance that you can face-to-face. whether it's working with, you can work with your hands and build things kind of as an assignment, but it's never quite the same. The ability to have a community of engaging ways and of natural ways, just, I don't think it's an emergency step that we're taking. And the degree to which the building administrators are checking in with the students and the staff on a daily basis to see how they're doing, providing whatever support they may need, reaching out to families, that would be the sum total of what we're trying to do. And of course, the target of ending it keeps moving down the field. I think at one point it was April 1st, April 15th, May 1st, May 15th. So that kind of like stutter start, you feel like, okay, we're just going to do this for a little bit. And then suddenly you're going a little longer. Then you're going a little long. And then at a certain point now, we're really wrestling with, and the board knows this, and the public probably knows this, we're getting solicitations from companies to do virtual graduations. We're working internally to see what we're going to design. Bless you. And so that sense of like, we're going to finish this up and figure out how to get back to school versus, you know what, this is going to be the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future is a real like split personality, if that makes sense, that I think we're grappling with.
Do we have any staff at any of the level or any of the grades doing Zoom classrooms where they're,
there's no
reading to the
live,
kids?
there's no live interaction. There's recorded video, follow-up email. Google Classroom is a platform that allows, and something called Screen Classify. Eric, help me out here. What is that called?
Yeah, I think you're correct, yes.
Screencastify, I think it's called.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a platform to be able to interface electronically with PowerPoint presentations, teacher voiceover, that type of thing.
So there's no live, like we're doing right now, stuff going on?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, I just wondered.
And what I'm describing, there's a range of what's happening out there in the universe of teaching and learning, from districts and schools producing paper packets and delivering them by bus, believe it or not, to the children, to the students, to some versions of a live, and it's called synchronous and asynchronous instruction. And there's a philosophical debate, maybe not so much in our community, but in a lot of communities where, picture this, you have 500 students and 125 of them, because their parents are out of work and they're struggling, they can't make the class at a certain time. They're trying to do different things with the time that they would normally be in school with their parents working. As opposed to everything is pretty well patched together and Johnny can make this class because he or she doesn't have to worry about these other very unique circumstances in a global pandemic that create a disconnect from the ability to just get in when you're supposed to be there. It's not as simple as we would think.
No, I can't imagine it would be.
No.
Maybe Scott and Brian could chime in what their kids are doing.
Sure.
I was just going to say, Scott, maybe I know Kate and Kenny are in virtual enterprise, and they're doing meetings with.
Yeah, they had something. They had something this morning. They had a Zoom meeting this morning.
Yeah, so they've been using Zoom for that.
Okay, I stand corrected.
But that's about it. I mean,
It's
Kenny
the exception.
was getting his work done so quick. He called his boss up and he says, "You have any work for me? I'm done by 11:30 every day." So he's been working noon till 5 every day.
That's funny. My kids are
it's
afraid.
honest.
They're telling me
What?
they can't come in till 2:30. I guess they're afraid I'm going to rat them out.
Well, I mean, it certainly paints a picture of how, we're still just a couple of weeks into this. We were doing one way for 50, 75 years, and, we're adapting, I hope for not forever. And if it's for the foreseeable future, the regions have been canceled. You know about the cancellations, the heartbreaking situation with athletics, that all spring sports are canceled. I mean, this is just, there's so many layers to this. I didn't want to cut Brian or Scott off, though. I'm sorry. But, the virtual enterprise, that's a very timely, model to adapt to a classroom setting, because you were basically doing it before you had to do it.
Right.
In that particular section. You're aware that some of the students have done some marvelous things with Soho TV skill sets. They produce videos that are being featured on the news. Now that's being done through they've learned how to do that. I love that Not Gonna Break My Stride, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I could watch that over and over again. I mean, Molly's video, you know, there's been a number of them. Our seniors, Nick and Shenanza, I don't know if that helps clarify a little bit.
No, it does. I just wondered about the from the kids' perspective, what their day is like. That's all.
Well,
Jessica complains she's got more work.
yeah, there's that too.
Well, they get up like normal, and they come down in their pajamas, have their breakfast, and roll back upstairs, log in, do their work. They usually finish what, Scott, like 1, 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so maybe even a little earlier.
Kenny's always done by 11:30, and then he goes to work. And
Jess is like, thinks too much work.
Yeah.
Kinda.
But you know, it's
Well, that's senioritis.
it's free range because you can pace yourself.
Right.
But you know, having the deadline of everything's done at 2:30 or by 4 o'clock, whatever it is, I think this is going to be like what do they call it? Creative destruction. You know, I think a lot of good is going to come out of this once we're down the road. You know.
Yeah, it's a very fair point, Scott.
Are there going to be sick days anymore?
What's that?
Are there going to be sick days because you can Zoom into a classroom? You know, or
snow days, sick days. I mean, all these things.
Exactly.
You know, there's a lot that we don't even know what's going to come out of it. You're absolutely right. It does force us to consider what should happen in the brick and mortar school, right? And what might be able to happen this way, and the skill set that's going to then migrate into business and commerce and all these other developments beyond the schoolhouse that our kids are going to be stepping into as employees, as leaders, as
I mean, look,
whatever.
Universities are talking about. I mean, I've heard the rumor that the next fall they're either going to be done online,
right?
Or they're going to, like Caitlin's, the freshman class might have to start in January. That's been thrown out there too.
Right.
Sure.
There's definitely, though, I mean, like Pete's major, I can tell you this like engineering where you're doing lab work and all that stuff, that suffers when you're totally 100% online. I can also just speak for the very younger population, you know, those K1 and 2 kids that I see, and they are desperate to get back to school.
Sure.
They are falling apart, not having their teachers and their peers, because for them, they don't have all the same connections, obviously, that older children have to stay social and all that.
I think we're realizing, like, my girls hate it. They want to go back. They want to see everybody.
Right.
They're realizing that school is more, probably 85, 90% social. And the
Yes, Brian.
Right.
Absolutely.
And young
correct.
kids,
Judy
that's
and
all-
Brian, it almost doesn't matter what age. You're both citing what is a kind of human nature thing. I will say that Mr. Rush sent out a survey, a climate survey to the students. It was very informative. This was probably 2-3 weeks into this. I lose track. It probably warrants doing it again to take the temperature. Some of the things that came up is it's a lot of work. Some of it came, because we left a lot of room for them to provide a narrative, like just tell us in your words what you think. And I should really compile it and get it to the board because you'd find it
I would love
interesting.
to see that. Yeah.
And the social piece missing this was huge, and it's kind of a no-brainer. But they value, you know, it's almost like, what is it? Distance makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately.
Right. I wonder if there's a way to David, to have the elementary schools surveyed, maybe through parents with what they're experiencing, because I think that that's a whole nother chunk of this, because you know, because parents have to be so much more involved in the day-to-day, and you know, may not have the tools, the skill set. I mean, I'm working with parents and teachers, trying to help them figure it out for their kids, you know, things, because now the reality is this isn't 2 weeks, we're 4 weeks into this. We can't just keep saying to our kids, oh, we'll do a little bit of this work. That parents want to start being able to, and I'm not sure they have the skill set with the technology to get it back in there and show teachers what they're doing. So I think we need to do something similar at the elementary level.
You're 100% correct. And just because we assume that, you know, the older students have more of a voice in their ability to respond, it can be a combination of some of the older elementary school students, not can really be anybody. You'd be surprised what comes out of the minds and hearts of a kindergartner, first grader. Some of the work I've seen has been incredible. Little examples, but very powerful. Incidentally, very proud of our students and staff. Do you know that hundreds of letters were written to all the staff members at the hospital in Greenport? I mean, we could really go on and on. I look here at police officer, firefighter, doctor. You know, it was just one particular initiative to try to just get a boatload of letters so that everybody felt touched. You know, it was a community service thing during spring break. But some of the most adorable things you would read were from the youngest kids, you know,
Oh, I bet.
right from the heart. Just great stuff. So, but your point, Judy, is 100% correct. Patty, can you remind me, please?
I did. I put it
follow up?
down.
Okay, great.
David, what is the follow-up like with our special ed students?
Again, I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat it. It's a real challenge. You know, we have the mental health component for those students. We have the support services. There was some relaxing from the federal government's guidelines vis-a-vis, you know, how quickly you had to have your meetings run and those kinds of technical issues. And even the provision of services, while you have to make an effort to do everything that you should be doing in an IEP, it's not as strict, I think, is the way that I interpret it. There's some relaxing of what is expected to get done. Chuck, can you weigh in? I don't know if we were privy to any of that, or maybe that's out of your wheelhouse.
Right. I haven't heard anything lately
Okay.
about, you know.
Or Patty, did you see anything come across from legal that I recall? You know, there's been a lot of.
I know information
18
we've been forwarding to Lisa, anything that I get.
Right.
You know.
I think it's more than an assumption. I don't want to even make it seem like that we're not doing everything that we can and should do for special needs students and students who are non-native English speakers per se. In other words, we're certainly making an effort to try to ensure, whether it's reaching out to their families, make sure they all have technology, because we had the Chromebook initiative. So lucky us, we had a very easy way to get insurance that we had, you know, the ability to connect in some fashion. I don't know if that answers the question, Paulette.
It does. I wasn't really concerned about the regulations. I was more concerned about the reality and the.
There. No, I mean, to the extent that our mental health support staff that deal with a lot of those students through counseling sessions and support services, they've gone out of their way to reach out to make sure that those students who need the support are getting that extra effort of communication. That's one layer that I know is happening as a result of the people that we have on staff.
Judy just texted me, and Judy's right. Maybe if we're forced to do our May meeting, like we can have our administrators as part of this, so that we can ask those very.
Idea. I think we can almost count on it. I hate to say.
Yeah, and I would love to see the results of Mr. Rush's survey. I think that it would be interesting. And you know, the one thing that you hear that's constant, whether it's local or wherever it is, that, you know, so many parents wanted to get their kids away from screen time. You know, the whole no more screen time, and these students are being forced to have more screen time instead of less screen time. And the irony of it is not lost, that's for sure.
Agreed.
Well, the good thing about it is now they're starting to not want more screen time, so maybe that'll be a shift in their focus going forward once they're let free.
And if we have to get warm weather.
Yeah, that would be nice.
It's going to be a challenge, but anyway.
Okay, I guess that's it on the superintendent's report, right?
Yep.
That brings us to personnel, and it looks like we just have 2 retirements, June 30th, 2021. Lisa Park, retirement effective June 30th, 2021. And Edward Brust, who's a part-time bus driver, retirement effective this June 30th, 2020.
Correct.
Is there a motion to accept the personnel recommendations?
So moved.
So moved.
And a second?
Rita.
All right, you pick it.
I got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chuck, I think your microphone is off. Not that it really matters anyway. Okay, Patty wants to continue as an East End Health Plan board member.
Was she really? You sure, Patty?
Yeah.
The terms are 3 years, and her term would be 7/1/20 through 6/30/2023. She does an outstanding job, and she gets paid a lot more money because she's a secretary as well.
Double stipend.
That's it. Is there a motion? We do that as an appoint or nomination, right, Patty?
Yes.
That doesn't come from your unit. That has to come from the board. I get confused about this all the time.
The unit also did a recommendation, but the board has to as well.
Oh, okay.
We
All right.
recommend it.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
A
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? I was gonna go out there, Patty. Anybody have any new business? Finance Committee report, Judy.
There is no report at the moment.
Building Committee report. The building was still standing when I just went by. That's all.
There you
there
go.
was.
And it's very clean. It's very
And it's
clean.
very,
It's very clean. There you go.
That's for
And
sure.
that track is being used, and I love to see that track being used. But while we're on the building, I did walk back there to the field. Can we bring up the field?
What's going on with the baseball field?
Oh, my goodness.
Because I have some pictures that aren't really pretty of it.
So is it fixed?
It didn't look
Well,
fixed upon my.
It depends. It depends on your definition of fixed. If it's not completely bright green, it's because the fertilizer just went down in Suffolk County. Not supposed to put it down before April 1st. And we were certainly intending to do it, and we just did it before that most recent rain. The fixes to the drainage issue have been going around and around, to say the least. There's a book that could be written on this one, I think.
I think you should.
Seriously, Chuck is grinning even. He has tried to grin a little bit because he's been privy to a lot of the around and around and around we go. In fact, up until today, I got another email from the contractor. And so we're toggling between the contractor, the architect, and us, and measuring and checking and inspecting. So the short answer is it's not buttoned up yet, but it could be close to being buttoned up on the basis of it being quote unquote fixed. So what I'm saying essentially is there was a very defined area where there was a problem. The board was briefed by our legal counsel that a fixed plan that would improve, it's called betterment, would occur. Namely, they ripped the thing up after trying 2 other different ways to fix it that didn't work. Then they ripped the darn thing up and they installed this, what's called a positive drain system. Look, I've become knowledgeable about building baseball fields. So this $50,000 positive drain system, and the contractor will tell us it actually was more than that. He cut the cost, whatever.
He gave us a deal.
What's that?
He gave us a deal.
He gave us a deal. So
To
that
every
doesn't
contractor ever.
No contractor ever, right?
A third, a third, a third.
A third. Yes, thank you, Dr. Crean. A third. You haven't paid yet. I don't think the architects have paid. And the other third was the construction management firm. They just wanted to get this done. So they said they're going to chip in, even though they have nothing to do with
David,
it. Well,
what was the name of that word when you get something extra? There was
betterment.
Betterment.
Yeah. But we don't know if it's quite better because at some point along the way, not the area that was fixed, but the area right next to the area was fixed, was still not working properly. This was the architect.
So we need we need further betterments.
We need better betterments, John. Better betterments.
Listen,
we need more
let me just say, I really would, in the spirit of, I don't know how you describe this, it's not the right thing to do. I would hate to hand this off to my successor and say, sorry.
That's what I was thinking.
No.
But you're tempted.
Listen, you put up with enough. Forget it. The baseball
We're just
field
buttoning it up?
the least of it.
Yeah, right. That's true. Thank you. Yeah.
Do we need to get the fire department there to flood it?
No, we just had like a boatload of rain recently, right? I don't know.
And how did it hold up? On my
Again,
blog
we've
tomorrow,
done-
I'll take.
I can't even count the number of inspections, videos, photographs that have been taken of that field.
Drone
I can't even count
flyovers.
it. It's north of 100.
So we still don't know the answer. Stay
Well,
tuned.
I'm only giving you the most recent exchange. Is there's this desire to kind of button it up and just say move on, and can we call this quote unquote fixed? I only bring up the fertilization because when we were looking at it a couple of weeks ago, a month or 2 ago, whatever. Mind you, this fix happened in the dead of winter, like in January.
Right.
So you can't really get to know if it's going to work until right about now.
That's what Mary Ann said. She was going to drag it out until.
Well, let's just say we were going to get it to a point where we could do a fair assessment of it. So I'll circle back for the umpteenth time to see if this is.
Is there a way to get the coach and maybe the athletic director and building grounds people, any way to get them out there, because they're the ones who are going to have to use it.
We John, in all honesty, they've been out there. At one point, the baseball coach took a hardball, chucked it up into the air like 50 foot or whatever, come down because he was trying to demonstrate how the nature of the turf was such that the ball wouldn't roll. It would stop dead because it wasn't drained properly. Well, mind you, I had my camera trying to videotape it, and it never was able to reenact because, lo and behold, the darn thing rolled as if the field was okay. But this was, I can't.
February, probably. The ground was hard.
At the moment.
David,
now,
can we maybe contact like a Jeff Standish and ask him to check it? He's objective. He's a taxpayer. He knows his stuff about fields. Maybe he could just take a look at it for us and say, you know what, guys, this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah. And we certainly have held their feet to the fire. There's no question about that.
I mean, he was super helpful on that other field, getting that other field set up. So he might just take a look at it and say, you know, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's playable.
Yeah. Patty, you're taking this down?
I am.
Okay, good. So I'll do my best to follow through and get that final seal of approval from trusted sources.
Okay.
Plow it up for the farming club.
There you go.
Policy committee. Have you been meeting there, Scott? Your policy committee meeting?
No, we usually do it after budget.
Imagine what the policy is going to look like as an outgrowth of this.
I can't imagine.
Imagine like 6 feet apart. Oh boy.
We're going to need a bigger building.
Certainly a bigger policy book. Well, you know the solution to that, Brian. Split schedule. You just have the population.
That's what I heard happen. That's what Jersey
They are
was
discussing it, yeah.
You think that happened in New York, David?
I think that we don't know yet, but what I can't say this with certainty, but the world of school as we know it is, at least for the short term, not going to look like we know it. There's no way you can come out of this and just flip the switch and we're right back to where we were in terms of how people will feel about being in and around, cafeterias, all that stuff.
Well, they're saying now that this might come back in the fall and the winter worse than it is now.
These are the unknowns that how do we create a structure, policies, procedures, all that stuff is going to have to be looked at from all angles. Sports, food, cleaning, budgets. It just, it's like, you guys know.
You picked a hell of a time to retire, Mr. Gamberg.
Tell me about what did I do? Brian, right time. What are you kidding? No, it's just, I feel obligated, though, to try to do what I can to hopefully hand it off as best as possible, certainly.
On that note, just so, if anybody does ask, we did meet with them earlier and you do have candidates, so we are going forward with the search.
Excellent.
Well, with the interviews, I should say, with the interviews. Yeah. All right, no policy, no visitors. So board member commentary. Scott.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just like John. I'll go to John's line. It's a special place. We'll get through it. Nothing really to worry about. I think a lot of this stuff is overblown for children. On the glass half full size is a couple 3 weeks ago. I was working a night tour, and I rode up New Suffolk Avenue. It was covered like a summertime with families out walking. Did my loop, and I'm coming down Peconic Bay Boulevard west to east, and it's dark, and all the houses along that road are typically close to the road. And almost every house you could see a family around the dinner table.
Wow.
So I'm just hoping that this is what sticks after this whole mess is figured out. We don't revert back to our screens in our separate rooms and not getting healthy and being physically fit and enjoying this beautiful place we live in. But I don't know. I've been proven wrong before.
Nah.
I'm done.
Good stuff. Judy.
Nothing other than
by the Brady Bunch boxes.
Well, I'm on top.
And so you're in the middle on mine.
It's all different for everybody.
What was it? Match game.
We have many
Hollywood
conversations
Square.
about that at our Saturday night happy hours, about how everybody sees it differently. No, I just want to thank, you know what? I have, I look at the people that I sit on this board with, and I see people who, the four of you right there, who are working every day as essential employees. I mean, I think everybody's essential, quite frankly, but I think everybody's essential in different ways. And you guys are all on the front line. Paulette, from the pharmacy business that you cannot shut down, and you have to be there for people who are really suffering. And, you know, you guys, John, you know, I hear you're not even home ever anymore. And Brian and Scott, you know, you have to be out in public every day dealing with all this. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that, you know, you guys give your time here as well in, you know, on the board. So I'm very proud to be a part of this group. And I just want you all to stay healthy while you're out there and stay safe.
Here, here.
That's it.
Ditto that.
Ditto.
Well said, Judy. Brian?
Like Scott said, you know, me being in here, we're definitely lucky to be where we are. It was crazy in here. And, you know, while it was bad out by where we are, it's 10 times worse in here. And our kids, I know Scott and I are dealing with a little bit, you know, John's dealing with it too, with Andrew and, Thomas and Matt. These kids are missing out, and it hurts to watch that, but, you know, this too will pass, and great, good things are ahead for them. And it's, you know, it's tough times, but we'll get through it.
Agreed. Thank you all for your service. John?
Well, you know, I think some good is going to come out of this at the end. Good, you know, it always does. And you really find out how much good is in people when a crisis strikes, particularly in South. So we're all going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. I'll tell you this. I spent a week up at Winthrop last week, and, you know, I have so much respect for respiratory therapists, nurses, and EMTs. You know, I'm in and out of the room in 10 minutes. You know, I'm telling people what to do, but they're, you know, you talk about front line. These people are real soldiers. They're the infantry. And so if you know a respiratory tech, a nurse, a med tech, someone who draws blood, you know, just give them a hug, because these people are just absolutely fearless and spectacular. And I witnessed it firsthand.
Wow.
And we're all going to be okay. We're all going to be okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Well, Judy, you're right. Everybody's an essential employee, regardless of what the position
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely.
I'm not as essential as I was between my disease and my age. I'm really in the high risk category, so it's been super frustrating. But it's also been very reflective for me. I'm not one. I've been in my house more this month than I've been in the 20 years that I've been in this house forever. And it's so sad. I thought I would like solitude. I thought I didn't like people. I actually miss people. Go figure, right?
Oh, I just want to add quick. I actually played Scrabble with my sons yesterday.
Wow.
Did they win?
Of course.
Of course.
Board games.
We've been playing
You're
Uno.
well educated
games
in that side, but yeah.
My heart really bleeds for you guys that have seniors this year in high school and in college. I think the high school ones, this will be their claim. They'll carry this. This is going to define who they are. And I know that the Southold bunch is a special bunch. Gosh, I remember them in second grade teaching them religion. That was a rough year. But I think that the glass is always half full. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a dreamer. And on the scary side for me is, and that was my questions about the budget. And because I'm out there in that part of the world, it is going to take, I get tears. We're not going to recover from this out here for a really long, long time. It's not going to recover in the summer or in the fall or next summer or the following. It's going to be a long, long time, and we're going to have a lot of really, really hurting people in our communities. And I'm just sensitive to it, and I know you guys are sensitive to it as well. I'm just not sure everybody's as sensitive as to the food banks out here in Southold Town are running out of food. Cast is doing 10, 12 times as many. I
was in Greenport yesterday. The
that
line,
part, pardon
line,
me?
yes, there was a line.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Yeah. And that's what I would like our students to recognize, as well as our staff to recognize that it's not, the firefighters or the policemen or the doctors or the pharmacy owner or the preschool teacher. It's everybody collectively, and it's going to be really, really painful. I think more painful than people realize it. And maybe just because I see it, that I think we just have to be ready for it. And we'll be okay, John. You're right. We'll be okay. It's just.
I also believe that we're going to have similar to after 9/11 that pushed a lot of families out that were thinking about it. I want to get the hell out of the city.
Absolutely.
I think with this, we're going to see a bump.
Good point.
Because the technology allows it, and people are realizing, because people down my street are from Brooklyn. I wouldn't be surprised to say, it's really nice out here. Everybody takes care of each other. The people drive by and wave. Let's make the leap.
I think once people get comfortable with the fact of, taking out a mortgage or, taking out a loan. And I know prior to the lockdown, when they try to keep everybody from coming out here, there was a rush on the rentals, on the housing market, about a month ago.
Yeah.
You're right, Brian. And from the two pharmacy perspectives in both stores, I can't even tell you what it was like, because it was almost as if right there, it was Armageddon in the city, and they just left without everything. They just got in their cars and
we had a summertime rush in March.
Yeah, and they came and they didn't bring anything with them. They didn't bring their medicine. They didn't bring anything with them. And
you guys, IGA weren't ready for it.
No, in Shelter Island, it was just incredible. Even in my neighborhood where I live, I see people I've never seen before. So there could be good to that. You're right, Scott. I think maybe some people will stay, and maybe as a result of distance learning, they're figuring out, hey, we can make this work. The best
distance working to some degree.
Distance working, telecommuting.
Yeah, that's the part.
Be in the city to work anymore.
Yeah.
I wish I would Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Zoom and Netflix.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Okay. Well, this was a good meeting. I wish we could do this all the time.
No, I'm missing.
No.
Yeah.
Once, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe twice.
I think we may have. David, there's no time on the budget vote date at all.
No.
No. The only thing that I'm aware of, and Chuck can validate this, is the 24th is no longer the time at which we would have to have it adopted. But we haven't received final guidance on either the deadline for adoption and the process of voting. Those two things.
I wonder if they're going to wait to see what they're going to do about the opening of schools and tie it into that.
Probably. So it's probably within a week to 10 days we're going to know, I'm guessing.
Okay.
Definitively.
Hey, Patty.
Yes.
When does Scott and I have to get our paperwork in?
Well, I sent you an email a couple days ago, I think. It was no longer Monday was the due date. It was Sunday night I sent it. So you knew that you didn't have to get it in Mondays. Since I don't have the budget vote date, it's like a count back date. So as soon as you can get it done, I'll let you know as soon as I know. But if you,
I'm throwing my thing on people's porches saying sign it. Throw it.
From a distance. Make it a paper airplane.
Like a paper, like the newspaper.
Yeah.
And then sanitize hands after everybody touches it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Nobody else took out petitions, just these two, right? Okay.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
You would almost wish that they would make some sort of thing that says if there's incumbents running and nobody else is running, that
I think they were
you don't need to go through the process.
Yeah.
Aren't they contemplating that? I think
Somebody needs to suggest it to them just in case they're not.
It may not be on the top of their list. Can I ask one more question, David? You and I talked about this a little bit. Will the state put any mechanism in place with surplus funds to be able to, like, we're going to have the surplus at the end of this year. If we could take X number of dollars for the next 5 or 6 years to apply to the budget.
Yeah, I haven't followed up with Senator Lavalle's office. That's on my list of things to do. I don't think Chuck has heard anything like that percolating from school business officials, but it's certainly worth at least a phone call, maybe an email, maybe Joe Dragone. Chuck might be, not Anthony Dragone, no relation. Joe Dragone is.
I'm sorry.
What?
No, I have a question on it after.
Joe Dragone is a business official in Roslyn and Nassau County and is like a guru. He's very tied into state lawmakers and policymakers, and he'd be the perfect person to kind of like ferret that up the food chain.
I
so to
think
speak.
they would have to, because all districts are going to have more surplus than they're allowed. And it would just make sense to be able to let districts have a fiscal plan for the next 5 years, even if you have this surplus and you want to apply $250,000 for the next 5 or 6 years. Certainly is a benefit to the communities and the taxpayers, I would think, but I'm naive.
So you're it's almost like you're thinking like a reserve designated for budget funding for 5 years.
Right,
Or something.
right.
That would make a lot of sense, because that would also make it a lot easier for us to all keep the economy where it needs to be going forward.
Right.
Right, and then there's no winners or losers. It's just,
Right.
it's, what's the word?
Yep.
Stays the same. It was just a thought. It was just a
Keep
thought.
it even, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this was good. All right, guys. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At 8:18, sorry it was more than 12 minutes, but I thought it was a really good meeting.
That was good.
Thank you.